19th meeting of the 21st Council will please come to order. All council members are present, with the exception of Councilor Lewis, and he will be here a little bit late. At this time, we will have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilor Bennett.
Yes, sir. Basically, what had occurred is the task force reconvened after the council had already received their final recommendations for changes to the POC and the IRO. In that reconvening state, wanting to have full access to all security protected statements, both in internal affairs and in the IRO's office, to the point.
And I don't mean to stop you. There are people watching on TV, probably a lot of councils who don't know what you're talking about. Is it Gary?
Gary is a right, a federal constitutional right bestowed on police officers during administrative investigations that keeps the officer's statement regardless of the criminality statements cannot be reused against them in criminal court or in civil court. Most of, especially in the law enforcement community, what we do happens to be looked at civilly, so it's very important to provide those protections so that a police officer doesn't invoke their Fifth Amendment rights upon being questioned for an administrative process. And what the task force had requested was that they have the ability or the authority to audit guarantee protected statements from internal affairs and from the police, the internal audit of the investigation of the IRO. The concerns we have is there's no way that you're going to be able to ensure confidentiality of those statements within the POV or the POC or the ICA or these 4 different levels of recommendations set forth by the task force. That becomes a liability not only for the city, the police department, the city employees that have to give these guarantee statements that are supposed to be confidential by the chief of police and internally the IRO's office. This is a much broader intrusion on our rights than a collective bargaining agreement. This is something that will definitely derail the efforts and send us into litigation. What we want is a stand-up civilian oversight process that the citizens, the police officers, and this council can be proud of. It's a vested interest of all parties involved, and all we're really asking for is a seat at the table, the opportunity to be heard. Being a major stakeholder representing police officers in this community, I don't believe that we've had that option.
Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So is it possible, protecting their identity, is it possible to release information as to, not personal identifiable information, but information about, whatever the actions were, if the officer was reprimanded or disciplined at all, anything that is not personally identifiable, is that still protected under Gary?
The officer's statement that is being given under coercion, when you were given a Garrity statement, you basically read something into the record that says, I'm giving this statement under coercion. I believe the failure to give the statement could and will result in disciplinary action taken against me. I do not wish to waive my constitutional rights at this time. So it's a protection of the Garrity statement on an investigative process, and if you take that out of the hands of the IRO or the police department and you put it forth in an audit type scenario to the POV, those securities are no longer in existence. So as a police officer, it leaves me the only other option to say, I plead the Fifth, and that's my constitutional right. I'm sorry.
Well, if I may, Mr. President, it seems to me that what we want the POC or POV, however it's named, to do is to track occurrences, look for patterns, make suggestions, policy recommendations, procedure changes. So the statement, I don't know that the POV would need the full statement, but details within the investigation that are linked to, obviously the officer involved.
President Sanchez, Councilor Gibson, you bring up a great point, and that's exactly what the intent of the oversight, the POV should be. It should be a very broad look at the police department, not only in the state of New Mexico, how we rank in this country, in the southeast western region of the United States. They should be looking at complaint audits. What are officers getting complained on? Where can we provide training to prevent these types of complaints? What kind of complaints are coming into a camera? Oh my gosh, everybody's complaining about the camera. Is the equipment faulty? Should we be looking at that as the POV? Yes, you're exactly right. And to have them wear 2 hats is absurd. The POV and the POC currently today is an appeals process. So if a citizen has a complaint against a police officer and the IRO investigates that complaint and the citizen disagrees with the IRO's findings, well then the citizen can go to the POV as an appeal, a last-ditch effort to have this complaint re-looked at and add any information that maybe they felt didn't get expressed in the original investigation. Now, currently today, the POV or the POC has to get a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on the IRO's work. So you have citizens going to the POC on an appellate process, and this group of individuals have already either approved or denied the IRO's findings. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Basically, there are ways and there are ideas and there are examples all over the country of how this process can work, can be broad, can give civilians what they need, give police officers the securities that they need, and a good, staunch oversight process. But some of what's in this current legislation is not that.
So what I'm getting from what you're telling me, that the statement is not necessarily protected. It is the association of the statement with an officer. Is that right?
No, the statement is also protected as well.
All right.
Because, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs, but.
Mr. Willoughby, could you keep your comments brief? We've got to continue on.
Okay.
So this will be discussing, we discussed the entire bill
Yes.
in the special meeting. Councilors.
Representative, who's your representative? Would it be Fred Mauer or someone else?
Fred now.
Okay, could I just ask the staff or Councilmember and Gardner to communicate with Fred Mauer or Mr. Willoughby about these issues that you perfect the level?
Councilman,
Mr. President, the Department of Justice, through our negotiators also, will be discussing Gary in its infinite iteration ways of how that can happen, best practices throughout the country. So it won't be based on just what we think or the union thinks or public thinks. It'll be based on a lot of things. And the DOJ ultimately, not to disagree vehemently, but I do disagree that Garrity is not holy grail. It's not a way of protecting everyone. It is a system that was, yes, constitutional, but if there is a consent decree that goes into that consent decree will describe and define how that will go forward, not whether we agree to it or not. Thank you, Mr. President. But there will be more discussion.
Thank you.
thank you. Let's go to item E, that is R-240, that is referring that item until the September 3rd meeting. The approval. We have a motion and a second for deferral until the September 3rd meeting. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, that carries unanimously. We are now under general public comments. There will be a 2-minute time limit. The item voting will turn green for the first minute and a half, and then for yellow, indicating you have 30 seconds remaining to wrap up your comments. At the 2-minute time, the light will turn red, indicating your time is expired. The first 4 speakers will be Art Tannenbaum, Colin Hanford, Casey Padilla, and Miles Conway. We have seating for you at the front. Once your name has been called, would you please come to the front and be prepared to speak. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Tannenbaum.
Thank you, Council President Sanchez. I wanted to apologize for the preceding meeting. I left my passion and motions with the president. So I wanted to apologize. Also, a clarification of the statement I made about the U.S. Department of Justice's finding. One of them was inadequate leadership, efficiency of leadership. So that's in the administration. And the city council, I would not want anyone to misconstrue that as a criticism of you, Council. So I'm sure we'll think you've done a great job of sharing very short procedures. I'm very encouraged by the questions to the administration. I had in mind maybe a speeding critique of the administration, but it seems like we're making progress in some justice. I noticed this will be followed, police officers and civilians, I would consider citizens. But I think we're making progress. I'm hoping that we can all pull together and be cooperative. Orders come down from the mayor's office, and also the responsibility should be at the top. Thank you for your time and your public service.
Thank you, Art. Colin? Tancred, followed by Casey Gia, followed by Miles Cowell. Can the audience hear the speakers?
No.
Can they turn that microphone up, please? Who would proceed? Who would proceed? Welcome.
Heather Wilson in RealClearPolitics.com says, despite overwhelming statistical evidence that pit bulls are far and away the most dangerous dogs in America.
ACPD is local, to come up here and just give a little perspective on the nature of management associates and their cabal of small family of organizations that have grown out of them, and what is being experienced by other unions across the state. I think it would be easy to assume that, hey, maybe this is an Albuquerque problem, that we're just having a tough time coming to agreement. But in my experience in coordinating with the other unions throughout New Mexico, you'll find just identical situations, whether it's the American Federation of Teachers, National Education Association, Communication Workers of America, and certainly AFSCME. I think it's safe to say that most every public sector bargaining unit across the state that has had the misfortune of being across the table from management associates and their family of groups, which is a very small crew, that all those is fruitless by design. There's no incentive for management associates to close off negotiations. They have, rather, we just touched on it now, a very high incentive to reach impasse because the billing hours continue. And furthermore, I think what you have is these for-profit management consulting groups have become very in vogue in New Mexico in the last 4 years. And the reason is because it's no longer about providing a service to the city or county or even the state. It is about furthering a political ideology to lessen the influence and impact of the labor movement. And who ends up suffering the collateral damage is 6% less pay in our brothers and sisters' pockets here in Albuquerque and across the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Richie? Deb Rinaldi, Cody Ferrari, and Cipriano Bueno, please proceed.
President Sanchez and council members, my name is Kim Ritchie, and I have been with the city of Albuquerque for 11 and a half years. I am also an officer with AFSCME Local 624. Along with my brothers and sisters, we are asking you, please, we need binding arbitration. We need to come to an end of this. I make the same amount of money. I work at transit. People that come to work now at transit, I make the same amount. I've been there 11 and a half years. I think we have a broken system that needs fixed. Please, we need your help. We're asking for your help. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Cipriano Bueno, and I. Welcome.
I hope you can read this. This will be some educational material for everyone. My name is Tony Gerard, and I approve this message. City Council gave the police a 5% raise. Sounds like rewarding them for bad behavior. Bad move, City Council. You're provoking more unrest. You're provoking more police assassinations for public safety. You're going to keep me safe whether it kills me or not. Canceling City Council on June 2nd was unnecessary, as it had nothing to do with City Council. It was yet another plan to stall for 30 days. The DOJ can't catch the obvious. It's time to clean house, boys and girls. If the DOJ can't comply, the citizens will have to do it for you. The executive session held by the City Council and the DOJ did not include citizen input. The people who scream for justice, well, the DOJ continues to spit in their face. The DOJ is here and charged with treason. I hope they're here against the American people. If you can't protect us, we want our wasted tax money back. Turn in your guns and badges at the door. Homeland Security is also charged with treason. Turning Americans against Americans. People came to the mayor's office on 6/2 to deliver letters and speak to the mayor. There was no invasion. And Robbie, I saw what you did. You provoked everything. You did nothing to de-escalate that situation.
Mr. President, could you instruct people to address the council?
I'm sorry?
Address the council, that's part of the council.
I'm sorry. Where did I leave off? Okay, to all concerned citizens, wake up, America. America has been in the grip of a crooked, corrupt, corporate-owned judicial system for decades now. Our business community doesn't give two takers scams about the assassination, as long as it doesn't affect their economy and their public safety. You show no concern. The POC should be dissolved in the next 60 days. The new POC, People's Police Oversight Commission, should be initiated. There will be a board of 5 to 7.
Thank you, time has expired. Anybody else? Adriana Whitwell, Isaac Mitchell, Nora Anaya.
Welcome, everybody. This is John Whitwell. I'm here just for educational purposes, since we should also address the idea that we people and our servants should be educated. So, here's from a writing from the United States Senior Judge Dale, who's retired, and this is his educational series. Top government officials have instructed our federal, state, local police, and all other corporate agents that everyone who proposes to be a sovereign citizen, subject to the color of the law, are treated as terrorists. Also brainwashing many Americans believing that being a sovereign citizen is anti-American and anti-patriotic, perhaps the top column president. What is sovereignty? Ironically, the United States Supreme Court agrees with the people who claim to be sovereign citizens. The Supreme Court held that the American people are in fact sovereign, and that the state and or the government are not. The court went on to define that local, state, and federal law enforcement officers were and are committing unlawful acts against the sovereign people by enforcing laws, and they are personally liable for their actions. What are the implications of the United States Supreme Court ruling? The delegates of the First Judicial Convention prohibited the use of corporations by governments representing the people. Therefore, all corporate governments and the corporate laws are a usurpation of the original Constitution of the United States, falsely acting as constitutional branches of government. You can find this in James Madison's Journal of the First Federal Convention, Volume 2, page 722. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Isaac Mitchell, Nora Anaya, George Hugh, and Roger Nichols.
Thank you. What are the implications of the U.S. Supreme Court ruling of state corporations created by the state legislatures, sub-corporations, bill corporated state, created by Congress in the Act of 1871, the District of Columbia, its own Constitution of the United States, the flag of the District of Columbia consists of 2 stars, about 2 red bars, and a white background, and gold and white columns. Therefore, all courts, law enforcement officers, and all other federal, state, city personnel, every agency, and our programs are not totally the code law unlawful citizens violate the United States Code, Section 18 of the Code. Federal, state, corporation, states, created by Congress, state legislators, and council, municipalities, state and federal courts are appropriate in each proposed in this Constitution and our we're here for justice for Jonathan Mitchell. He has not received justice to him. He was slain by a vigilante. I have not heard anything from the council about the actions that this vigilante has imposed on my son. We're here for justice. If you can't have justice, there will be no peace. My son was shot in the back. We have a district attorney saying it was self-defense. It's not self-defense. My son was shot in the back. Fleeing vigilante. You may have not heard that because perhaps they are trying to exclude that information. We have appealed to the civil complaint to DOJ. DOJ responded that they have referred our complaint to the criminal section and litigation section of DOJ. We expect them to act on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nora Anaya.
Mr. President, Council, I am here to read this
implications of the United States incorporating. Corporations are previously owned businesses, meaning that corporate United States belongs to one or more individuals, which are governed by a board of directors. The corporate United States privately owned by a group of European royals, elite individuals, and the Vatican tied to the Federal Reserve System, and the letters of incorporation recorded in the Vatican. The President of the United States is actually the CEO of the United States Corporation. Congress and all others are corporate employees. Everything they do is in the interest of the corporate owners. In order to promulgate enforce criminal laws to govern the sovereign citizen, the corporate state government must be sovereign also, which is an accepted rule of law, deprived for the ancient law of kings. Corporations are not and can never be sovereign. They are not real, they are fiction, and only exist on paper. The King's Bench. Before the king himself, the old name of the Court of King's Bench was held before the king in person. The people of this state, as the successor of its former sovereign, are entitled to all rights which formally belongs to the king by his prerogative. Lansing versus Smith. Remember, the people, the successors of its former sovereign, are entitled to all the rights of which formally belong to the king.
Thank you, your time is expired.
Number two, Robert Wilkinson.
Please hold your applause. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council President and Council. This is my fourth time here. About to say I think everything.
Comes up to about how much?
Well, 127,000 for 300 transit drivers.
Mr. Perry?
Sure. Excuse me. In 2014, it was $934,000 on a reoccurring basis. In 2015, with a 3%, that's costing the city $2.7 million. That's what's being upheld in this contract overall, is your appropriation of $2.7 million to roughly quite a few employees. I'd say roughly 3,000.
So, but that money's gone. Been real.
No, that money's not.
Not the 3% presently, but the percentage numbers that you, 840.
Mr. President, Council Gardenia, that money was appropriated within the budget process, utilizing the appropriations mechanisms of the city council and the executive branch in prior fiscal years. Yes, sir.
And those came back to us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
One last question, Councilor Pena, and we'll move on to the next public speaker.
This is for Mr. Zaman. So I can hear Mr. Perry speaking and talking about we can reserve it for next year. Is there any way through resolution of the council can we actually state that once, if they happen to go to impasse it and the money doesn't get dispersed, that we can save it for next year?
Mr. President, Council Pena, yes. And actually, the more direct way to do that by resolution would just be to take at the end of the year for those unions who were in impasse or who weren't able to reach an agreement, just to actually re-reserve those dollars.
Okay, I'd like to consider something like that. Thank you, Mr. Zaman.
So quickly, if we reserve those dollars, and next year, basically there's a 3% increase for the employees, then there would actually be 6% for those employees?
But the council would reserve 3% return and give another, 3% on top of that, yes.
And real quickly, I support that concept, but the biggest problem is those individuals that may have 3 years left in their tenure here at the city of Albuquerque, based on the PARA formula, would lose out. So I mean, we should really try to work at getting that 3% increase for those employees as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience.
Uses that are funded by the taxpayers that are very specific that we are looking at right now. So the ambiguity of this is concerning to me, and it's not possible for me to support an issue that is so broad when we're asking taxpayers to make it.
Any other comments, questions? I have concerns about this, and I support this committee substitute. I think it's vitally important for substitute to this community. More now than ever before. We talk about these different agencies that have this money, but have they used that money appropriately? Apparently that's not the case. But we are asking the taxpayers of this community to make that decision, to make that investment on their own by saying yes to this 1/8 cent gross receipts tax. I mean, we can provide a treatment facility with 24/7 supervision and services for the mentally ill individuals who are unable to live independently because of their high levels of need. We've seen just recently the 2 homeless Native Americans who were brutally murdered on Albuquerque's west side. The James Boyd case, I mean, he was in and out of the prison system for many years. He was in Las Vegas and he was released. But I mean, we've got a major and a serious problem. I think right now, today, that this problem is in the forefront of our community. And I think we're all very concerned about the homeless. We're all extremely concerned about mental illness. And I think the most critical issue and the underlying issue is substance abuse. Those will also be an issue, be dealt with in this legislation. And it will be not up to this council, but to the voters of the city of Albuquerque to make that investment into these very critical and serious issues. We know they're serious. We know it's impacted this community in many, many ways. And I think now is the ideal time to let the voters make this decision. I mean, we can just send this to the voters, and they will have the final decision if they want to impose a 1/8% gross receipts tax, for this budget. We had the support of Councilor O'Malley, or Commissioner O'Malley, and basically we were going to do this countywide, but because of the time restraints, that did not happen. They had 30 days to get this on the agenda, and time was going to be of the essence. But I just would hope that this council would allow the voters of Albuquerque to make such a critical decision when we are dealing with such serious, serious problems with the mentally ill and the homeless problems in our community. Council Vice President Jones and then Councilor Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree. This is something that absolutely necessary for the voters that's going to be done. But we're still not telling them what are we going to do with it. Your interpretation of essential services and my interpretation of essential services could be totally different. Do the voters actually know, when we get to the next item, what it is? What can we do with it? What are we going to do with it? And what is there about this that is different from the monies, the 100 million so that's already out there for them? So I agree. We must do something. We must do something for the people who are in need. But I would like to know what it is we're going to do for them before we vote to do something, because we need to do something, but not necessarily talk about the needs.
Councilor Benton?
Well, I think by the time that this would come before the voters, we're going to have some pretty good direction from the Behavioral Health Task Force that's planning to release their findings in September. I think it'll be made very clear that we can spend this money effectively and with accountability. I understand your argument, Councilor Jones, and I'm sympathetic to it, but I'm also very clear, having worked with that task force today, as to the need. And I think the community understands the need. I think our police department understands the need for these kind of services. They've been placed in a difficult situation very often because of our lack of these services. And to me, we're kind of at a critical turning point for the city. The evidence is there, it's there in the every day. It's there right before your eyes if you walk around on the streets and see so many individuals that are suffering out there. We pretty much are faced with this kind of investment or making a very difficult and odd decision to agree to put up tent camps for these people. I mean, they're already camping down on First Street in south of downtown. It's a big impact on our economic development in downtown. And the need is very clear to me. But I would say, in answer to your argument, Councilor Jones, I think we will have a very clear idea of where these funds will be spent come October prior to the election.
Councilman.
And just to add to what Councilor Beckman was saying, is that he's exactly correct. You know, we established this task force, and through the task force, we actually supported an ordinance for an essential services study, and that study should be able to identify the gaps in our community. I know there's a lot of money put for social services, but not all of them are to really look at some of these intense services that we need. You know, police officers, I hear this all the time, are forced to deal with these issues out in the community, and they're not trained to be social service workers. And when we look at the prison population, most of the prisoners that we have, most of the people that are incarcerated suffer from some form of mental illness. And when they're released from the jails, they actually only receive 3 days worth of medication, and then they're kind of on their own, you know. So I don't know how much money it's going to take to address this issue, but I do know that I think it's important to ask the voters. We're asked to take real bold steps in order to make a difference in our community, and I think it's important that we ask voters to support something that would help to alleviate this problem that we have in our community. You know, and when we talk about some of the issues, I know it does seem vague, but we really can't put in here exactly what it would go to, because there's a process that has to be followed. Once we identify the gaps that we have in our community, then there will be people that will come out and they'll be able to apply or be able to access those dollars. But some examples of some of the things that could be funded is to establish an evaluation center where persons with mental health illness could be evaluated, stabilized, and referred to long-term services. I know this is something that's really supported in the community. And then also, we could potentially provide a treatment center with 24/7 supervision and services to mentally ill individuals who are unable to live independently because of their high level of need. You know, earlier I heard someone, talk about YDI, and I hate to bring this up in my role as city council, but we had a person who was accessing our services, and they had a lot of mental health issues, and unfortunately the person turned 18 and we didn't have the resources to be able to provide any additional support, and unfortunately something very tragic happened to one of our clients. And with these dollars, not only organizations like YDI but others like Heading Home could really be able to help fill these voids in the community, because the tax isn't just for adding more dollars, it's for really looking at what the gaps are and being able to fill those voids.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm involved in that mental health task force too, and I know that the city, the county, UNMH, and the state, and we've got a lot of elected officials on it, and I think the point is what we're trying to do is see the services out there, who's offering those services, where that money's coming from, what that money's being used for. And I think it ought to be a joint ask. I mean, we're talking about extra taxpayer money. First of all, what is the taxpayer money being used for? And if it's being used the way it should be used, and I think that's what this task force is trying to find out. And we keep giving money. This is a tax increase, and so I want to really find out first what that money is being used for. Where is it? And who's putting that money in? How much is the state putting? How much is UNMH, which is also taxpayer money? How much is the county putting in? Will we work this together? And that's why I just think it's too premature to
approve this now. I just think we need to wait, we need to all work together. It's gonna be a tax increase, then all the agencies look at doing it.
Council Gibson, and Council Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is something that the people in Albuquerque want to see on the ballot. I think this is something that it covers a lot of different issues, addiction, mental illness. And those are certainly two issues that have touched every family I know, one way or another. So once we add homelessness to that, it makes for a very hard life. Pardon me. I think this is something that, in short, that voters want to be able to vote on. And I predict that it will pass largely, by a large margin. Thank you.
Council Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. For our staff or legal, if this bill and the next bill were to pass tonight, let's say a majority votes for this, well, first of all, I've heard that there's a possibility that this question and others that were from this point forward, if we choose may not make it on the November ballot, and there's a reason for that, I guess. You address that, Mr. Zaman?
Mr. President, Councilor Lewis, that's right. Staff has been in discussions with the county clerk about the number of state and county issues that are going to be on the ballot and federal issues. And so there's very little room on the ballot, and the county clerk has informed staff that there may be room for one or two city items on the ballot. But if this were to pass and the other two propositions were to pass, there would be 5 city questions potentially for the ballot.
And Mr. President, we're gonna do an election resolution, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and so I'm assuming maybe the council president will sponsor that, it'll be an election resolution. When will that come before the council?
Mr. President, it's on the agenda for this evening.
An election resolution that will include
Mr. President, Council Lewis, we've got amendments for any questions that pass this evening to incorporate them into the election.
Okay, so this resolution, this ordinance, and then it'll change along with the next resolution that I guess puts this question, puts it onto the election resolution is what it does. The question is going to go into the election resolution, and that's going to be the bill that'll come out of this, I guess, the meeting tonight.
Correct.
Okay, so if this bill and the next bill were to pass, it's a majority, so the mayor would not have an opportunity to, let's say, make a decision on this or use the administration, I guess, powers of veto. On this specific bill and the next one, the mayor wouldn't have the opportunity to do that specifically on this, or would he?
Mr. President, it's our position that he would not.
Okay, so this bill could pass, and then it would go directly to the election resolution, but the mayor would have the ability to use those powers on the election resolution, correct? Okay.
Councilor Harris.
And assuming that the election resolution was vetoed, then I guess at that point in time, there'd be no city question on the ballot. That's the position.
Mr. President, assuming that the city council didn't override it at the September 3rd meeting, that's correct.
Okay. And I would just caution you folks, just check out the votes of this, because I would hate to muddle this thing up so that we don't have any of one of the other issues that we won't agree on, because we want to make a point or something. I believe that one way we could, or five councils could, put something on a ballot, even the mayor didn't like it, would be a general municipal election, because at that point in time, it's my belief that the mayor could not veto the general resolution. I mean, the charter requires us to have a municipal election in 2 years. So if there's something that only 5 councils agree with, then that might be the way to do it, is put it on the general election in 2015, I guess, the next one. But I just asked the other council not to mess up our election proposals that we all agree on.
Well, I don't think that the council would mess up the election
it would be the mayor by vetoing the legislation and the resolution that's
Excuse me, Mr. President, if the council knows it's going to happen, it's the council that's participating.
We're not messing anything up, it's the decision of the mayor. If he makes that decision to veto that resolution, it's not the council, it's the mayor.
If, Mr. President, if the council sends that, sends something up to the mayor that knowing it's dead on arrival, then the council is participating in that decision.
So I hope that you would not speak on behalf of the mayor, that would be a decision by the mayor, not by Councilor Harris. Councilor Vinnie or Councilor Wade?
Thank you, Mr. President. Those on the council that were elected as mayors, please raise your hand. What are we doing arguing about something that has nothing to do with anything? If the mayor wants to veto something, let him do it. You know, he has to answer to his constituents just like we do. And if we want to pass something and run the risk, if that's what you want to call it, that it'll be vetoed, that's on him. If we want to do legislation, I think we should not be encumbered by this idle threat of the fact that the mayor would not pass the mayor's veto. That's his prerogative. If he wants to veto everything, and he's done a lot of it, wants to veto everything we put forward, that's his prerogative. But I don't think we should stop legislating just because we think we might do it.
Councilor Winter, then Councilor Lewis, and then Council Vice President Jones.
No, Mr. President, Councilor Warner, and we're just asking clarification questions. Councilor Gardino, we're clarifying, and I think that probably was the rest of the council even knew that. What we're doing here tonight is dealing with these issues, and it's going to build toward the election resolution, which will be one bill that will come out here tonight. I'm assuming the mayor can't line out a veto that bill, could he?
Mr. President, no, there's no economic aspect.
Okay, so we're dealing with questions here tonight. We're dealing with this question. We're going to deal with other questions, and it's going to make a difference on how we vote on and deal with the election resolution, regardless of what the mayor does. Of course, he has the ability, but on this specific one, the mayor does not have the ability to be able to give, or I guess be able to give a legislative type opinion directly on this resolution, this ordinance change in the resolution that's going to follow.
Councilor Winter? Council Vice President Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Zamora. Point of clarification. Considering that we've already it's been made very clear to us that the county is not going to have room for very many items on the ballot. Is there a reason, since odds are really good, and I'm only speculating, but we seem to have a lot of issues here, and they're saying two. Is there a reason why this particular piece has to be voted on now? If in fact it were to be, we could wait until after the commission, the mental health commission comes back so they can say what they recommend we use this on. Is there a reason why is there a timing issue that says that we can't do this after we know what we're voting on, rather than you have to vote for it before we get to know what it says?
Mr. President, Councilor Jones, I think the timing issue here is the desire to get this question on the November ballot. And with that in mind, the county clerk has the responsibility to get the final ballot to the Secretary of State by September 9th. So I think part of what's driving the timeline here is that September 9th deadline that the county clerk has to get the finalized ballot to the Secretary of State.
And Mr. Thank you, Mr. Simon. And that would be assuming that some of the other issues that are passed or could be passed aren't on it. And how do we set which issues go on that ballot? Does the city council get to say that? Does the mayor get to say that? Does the county clerk get to say that? How is it voted on? Which issues, if we have to eliminate, say we have 5, we can only put 2 on, how do we determine which 2 go on?
Mr. President, Councilor Jones, hypothetical, let's say, for example, that the council chooses to put all 5 questions in the election resolution and refer those to the city clerk and ultimately the county clerk. Ultimately, the county commission would have the final say as to what goes on the ballot. in consultation with the county clerk about what will and what will not fit on the ballot. It's possible that when the county clerk and the county commission get questions that the city has forwarded to them, they look and say, we can fit this one, and this one, but not this one and that one. So it would be at the discretion of the commission to choose which question.
Thank you, Mr. President. So one more. So assuming that we can't get them all on, and we will have to have a special election for something that we're looking at here, if the majority of these pass, what is the rush to put this one? Can we not simply pass something to put on our special mail-in election? Saying we have to hold it, but more than two of the issues passed.
Mr. President, Council Jones, the council could choose to prioritize the legislation some on this evening, or the council could choose to refer some to the municipal election in October of 2015, or say these ones are going to go on the November ballot and we're going to delay the rest. It's entirely the council's prerogative.
Or one more, and that is if this is a burning issue and we don't have the answers and we're not comfortable voting on it yet, but we could wait and actually, there's a possibility that there will be a mail-in election for the issues that don't get on the next general election.
Mr. President, Council Jones, there is that possibility. There's also the possibility that the constitutional amendment prohibits cities from putting municipal issues on the school board ballots, passes, and then some of the city questions could be placed on the February ballot, the school board ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe there's two other questions that we've already, that came through resolutions that we've already recommended one about. Police and fire?
The police chief, the fire chief, and reauthorization of MR bonds.
Right, so there's two.
Right, the police and fire chief was a combined amendment, and then reauthorization of MR bonds is the second.
So any other, addition to that recommendations are really in jeopardy, put the whole thing in jeopardy, I guess, that any of those would be able to go on there. Because or I guess we'd have to, or we could make a list of priorities. We could amend that election resolution and say these are the priorities of ones that, if two fit, we like these two, if four fit, put these four on here. We could do that too, I guess.
Mr. President, Councilors, I think the options are that the council can express its priorities, or the council can defer to judgment of the county clerk and the county commission about the most, which and the most city issues going on.
And I think we are going to need, we're probably going to need administration to weigh in on this tonight, because there will be a bill later on in the evening then that they're going to have to be faced with, allowing, maybe 4 or 5 questions beyond the ballot tonight, or beyond that election resolution, and possibly even jeopardize everything else that's on it. So I would hope also that any other additions tonight, including this, that they would be a part of the discussion here, because I think that we're putting these questions I think that we've all agreed on in jeopardy by ones that we might disagree on.
Councilor, would the county commission, Mr. Zaman, be bound by our preference that we put in our election resolution?
Mr. President, Council Harrison.
I know that Mr. Zaman has worked closely with the county clerk, along with the commissioners. I've had a couple meetings also with Commissioner O'Malley and Commissioner Clark Stebbins. And again, basically, it's their election, it's a general election, and we are at their mercy to see what we can get on that ballot. And hopefully it'll be enough for all the questions to be on the ballot. I don't think that's going to be the case. They said 1 or 2, possibly 3, because basically they condensed, I think, one of their bond issues into one less question, so that would leave a little bit more room. So I think they're really trying to work with us and, providing us the avenue to get all those questions on the ballot as possible. Councilor.
Thank you, President. And thank you, Mr. Zaman, for clearing us on that. And I think that since we're talking about what other people may or may not do, I think we just need to do our job here and vote for the items that we want to vote on, up or down, at whatever level we're going to vote. Send it up to the mayor, and if he wants to jeopardize the whole, the provision for going on the ballot, he has that prerogative. Otherwise, it will go to the county commission. The commission will look at the items, and they will determine whether they have the weight of going on the ballot for November 4th, or whether they would be not put on the ballot, and I guess essentially sent back to us, saying these did not fit, find some other way of accommodating your vote. The main thing is it will go to the voters, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, I think. So let's move forward with the items and pass them.
Council opinion closed.
Just to add a little bit to what Councilor Garcia and the other councilors are saying about whether it's all in the hands of the county, and I think that no one really loses here, because at the end of the day, if we have all of the proposals that we have in front of us, even though the county commission can decide, and the ones that don't get on the ballot this go around, we have an opportunity for there to be a special election, another election to get them on. So I think it's a win-win for all of us. And then I just want to close by saying, the public asked us to make some bold decisions and to do some bold things, and I think this is an opportunity for the community to make a decision whether they will support this kind of effort to provide services in the community. It's not just the council, it's not just administration, but it's the community. I urge your support.
We've already closed, Councilman.
But if the sponsor would consider it, I have a small correction that I think probably should be made to make sure the intention is clear. But in the fourth sub, on the second page, on line 11,